Margarita Cardenas, your host with Urban Traditions, here with you for another segment. And today we have some members of the Rotary Club and the Beautification Project that are going to speak with us about this arduous project they've taken on, renovating Grace McCarthy Vista Point. But before we do that, let's hear from Bob Jacobson, the president of the Rotary Club.
So you're the president of your club for a year, and it starts in July and ends in July, or ends in June. So I've got 2 more months to go. That's right. Next year, I'm taking it all off. It's a service organization. It was started in around 1900 by a gentleman, Paul Harris from Chicago. Basically started out as a business-oriented service organization, and it quickly spread out of Chicago. San Francisco got the second club in the world, and now I think we're 1.5 million members worldwide. I've forgotten how many clubs, 30,000 clubs, something like that. So it is. I think are a few service organizations that are larger, but it is one of the largest service organizations. But at the end of the day, what it really is, it's just people like you, like me, who want to get involved and help their community make an improvement like this. Local, international, there's all kinds of opportunities. It's really a great organization. So Rotary International, the mothership, if you will, their big project over the past 15, 20 years has been the eradication of polio. That started out, it's a good example of how Rotary works. It started out as in the Philippines with one club just going and immunizing their own village, and then they did the next village, and it just sort of spread out from there. When they started, polio was endemic in there's probably more countries it was endemic in than it was not endemic in. Now we're down to, I think, 3 countries: Afghanistan, Pakistan, and I want to say Nigeria, someplace in Africa. But it's huge. India just, I think, has gone for the first couple of years without any new cases. So it's a huge win, and that involves clubs just going out and giving children, it's the little liquid that they drink, and going out from there. This started as an effort by the city of having a beautification task force. Several Rotarians in our club are members of that task force. And so when they said, here's the projects that the task force recommends doing, I said, let's do the Grace McCarthy Lookout. That's a great project. It's real visible. People can see it coming down. And I think it'll have a really great impact for the town. Only if it works. If it works, then I designed it. If it didn't, then I'm going to give somebody else the credit. We just need to keep them wet while they're starting out. Once they're established, these are all drought-tolerant plants. So it was designed to be minimal maintenance, but we just got to watch it when it gets going. Lots of native plants. Wendy would be a much better person to talk about on the plants. So we can always use more community help. The club is about 22 members. We meet every Tuesday morning at Sharp Park Restaurant, 7:15 it starts. If anybody's interested in checking out Rotary and the local club, come to breakfast, Sharp Park, 7:30 on Tuesdays. Breakfast is on us, and you can check it out and see what's going on. We always have a speaker, a lot of very interesting topics, so it's usually a good time. It's always a good time. Excuse me, not usually, always a good time. I would like to thank Ginny and the Beautification Task Force for figuring out what to do, and all the people that were involved in the planning of this. When it comes down to it, I'm just labor. I'm just out here, moving stuff around. I think the real brainchild of this is Wendy and Jenny and all the people that were on the Beautification Task Force.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Bob, for introducing our guests, Ginny Jaquith, Wendy Santiago, and last but not least, Dave Martinez. Well, welcome everyone.
Well, thank you for having us.
And so Ginny, you're the force behind this project.
Well, I am the chair of the Beautification Advisory Committee, and I can tell you a little bit about how that started and how Rotary fits into all of that as well. So a year or so ago, Mary Ann Neihart was mayor at the time, and she really wanted to focus on keeping Pacifica beautiful. And so we began this campaign. The city council appointed a beautification task force who took a year to develop a plan that really focused on the key spots in Pacifica that could be beautified. And we're now in the process. It's been a year. the plan has been approved, and an advisory committee has been formed, and we're working with the Department of Public Works to implement all the beautification projects that we identified in the plan. And so the very first one that's come about is the Rotary Club's project to beautify Grace McCarthy Vista Point, and that's how we all sort of come together on this. So we're very excited that the first project is very near completion, and we're continuing to work with other community groups in Pacifica to implement some other projects. So that's how we got here, and that's how Rotary is a part of this.
Oh, I see. But you are a member, and so is Wendy.
Yes,
part
Wendy,
of
Wendy and I are both Rotarians, and we're also members of the Beautification Advisory Committee. So,
which is with the city.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why Grace McCarthy Vista Point? What is the purpose? Why did we pick Grace McCarthy?
Well, that was really Rotary's choice. Although the advisory committee has identified 6 or 7 key spots in Pacifica that are the high priority areas to be beautified, and they're primarily entrances to the neighborhoods and spots that are high traffic areas. And so Grace McCarthy Vista Point is certainly one of those, being on Sharp Park Road. And when Rotary decided they wanted to take on one of the projects, that just seemed like a perfect project for the club to beautify.
Well, so I met you like a year ago at Earth Day.
Yes.
And you were looking for fundraising. So it's all done now? You got all your money?
Well, no, we don't have all of our money, and I think that's an important point to bring up, because we are doing all of these projects without city money. So we will work with groups that are interested in working on it. We'll figure out some ways to help fundraise for each individual project, but so it's very, very much a volunteer effort, with the support of the Department of Public Works, of course, in the city. But we're really focusing on these being volunteer projects.
Okay, and are you still looking? I remember that you were trying to push the Adopt a Highway factor. Is that happening?
Yes, that's also part of it. So Caltrans is, lots of the areas that we're talking about are on Caltrans property.
Oh.
And the Public Works Department has a nice relationship with Caltrans, and they've agreed to assist where they can if we have a project that involves Caltrans. So, and Adopt a Highway project is certainly a part of that. So.
Oh, okay. So that's why you had control of that highway that day then, because is that part of Caltrans there?
What part?
Yes.
Oh no, that's yes. And actually the city Department of Public Works assisted us by putting up all the barricades so that travelers coming down Sharp Park would know that we were there.
Yeah. We don't want any accidents.
No.
Well, so Wendy, and hi Wendy,
Hi, Margarita.
And hi Dave. Good to see you. You're
Hi,
everywhere,
Margarita.
Dave. Everywhere. But how did you get involved, Wendy?
Well, I was originally on the beautification task force, and as Ginny mentioned, I'm a Rotarian, and I wasn't part of that process, but Bob, who was a president, and I don't know, probably some other people were involved, decided to do the Grace McCarthy Vista Point. And as the task force, we'd already put together a plan. It was already selected as a site, and Dave and I got together several times, and we put together a plant list to be used at all the different sites. So, yeah, we just worked from that.
Well, Wendy is a landscape architect and master gardener, and Dave is a master gardener and master composter. So, Dave, tell us, how were the choices of the species to be planted chosen?
Well, being living in Pacifica, the weather, we have the certain microclimates on the coast, And by the way, we have lots of different microclimates because we have right next to the ocean and we have inland too. But I took this one class, a bay-friendly gardening class, and they had a great list on some native plants and some Mediterranean plants. And so we use those for a base, and then we pick some other ones that we like together, and we threw those in there too. So there's a lot of different plants that we could pick from, and there's more that we can add too.
Right. Oh, you're still adding, or
Always.
Oh.
Always.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Choices are endless.
Yeah, and so not all the plants are like I said, they're not all California native plants. Around the world, there's climates that are like ours, and it's known as a Mediterranean climate. And so those plants in those areas also have a dry summer and a wet winter, and that's a Mediterranean climate. And so if we get plants from those areas, we can grow those here too. We get the proper soil environment, and they can handle the dry summers that we have. So some of these gardens will take a couple years to get established. Once they're established, we just don't have to water them anymore. They'll be able to survive, be sustainable.
Yes, and we do have to give credit to Bob Jacobson. That's what he was trying to deny, the irrigation system. He's designed that, and very ingenious. I saw that, and it's just little bits of holes that are on that tubing, and that is supplying the moisture for those plants, those natives there. So now let's talk about, of course, my favorite subject, plants. Native plants, which is what we're trying to push now. Can you tell us a little bit about the choices, and especially those beautiful yellow ones that I like so much? Those were not native to this climate, you said.
Those were, yeah. I was just looking at the plant list for Grace McCarthy, and most of them are natives, but those are not natives. That is the Phlomis fruticosa Grand Verde, which is a Jerusalem sage. Most people call it Phlomis. Do you ever hear of Jerusalem sage? I don't usually hear that.
When you forget how to say Phlomis.
Anyway,
a lot of people have hard times with the botanical names, so it's a lot of times it's easier to remember the common names. I was at fault with that when I first took my horticulture classes. I had a hard time learning my Latin names, so I learned from common names.
Is that the purple ones?
The purple ones are salvias or sages.
Oh, okay.
But the Jerusalem sage, that's the problem with the common names. It's Jerusalem sage is not really a sage.
Yeah.
It's a Phlomis. But we have two different true sages up there. There's a wild pink sage and an Allen Chickering sage, and those are salvias, which is the botanical name.
Salvias. And were those the ones that you were putting down the mulch on, the pink ones there?
Oh, those are cistus.
Okay.
Rock rose.
Oh, okay.
And I think they're from Australia. They're not a native either. The salvias are natives. And I wanted to, we were talking, we do have an irrigation system out there, but it's temporary. Like Dave was saying, just until the plants are established. If we were able to plant in October or November, when it just starts raining, get those babies in the ground, and they'll get the rain all winter and get their roots out, and then we might not have had to water at all. We maybe not have any irrigation system. It depends on how well they get established over the winter time when they are getting water. We had a fairly dry end of winter, so
Very.
they probably would have needed supplemental water anyway. But anyway.
And so you told me that these were drought tolerant. What is the importance of being drought tolerant? Because Pacifica is moist. So why? To either of you?
Well, we have the winds here in Pacifica, and that'll dry out the soil also. A lot of the plants you'll notice are gray, or they have hair on them, and that's a form of defense to help the plant hold in some of that moisture. So you'll see that a lot of the plants that we pick are gray or they're hairy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even after a heavy fog, it depends on where you are where you live in the city. We've got all these microclimates, and I'm actually in an area that gets a decent amount of fog. And even after a heavy fog, I'll go down and dig in the soil a little bit. It's really just moist on the top, It doesn't go that far down.
Right. And the other thing too is you have to remember when we plant the plants, they're only maybe a 1 gallon plant. So that's that root right there. And that root needs to get some moisture, and it's not going to get it over here because it doesn't have roots over there yet. So if we can get it established first, then the roots will be out there. They'll be able to get more moisture in the ground.
And when you water them really well, when you first get them in, it's like Dave was saying, if the plant is here and it's getting water, like over here, the roots will go all the way over to there. So you want to make sure in the beginning that you really give them a lot of, you don't want to overwater them, but you want to make sure the whole area gets pretty wet so that those roots can get in, so that when we stop watering it, it can find water.
Yeah.
Right.
So one of the key things is deep watering, but not frequent watering, because the roots like to dry out, and that's one of the things about the California native plants. Their roots like to dry out, but if you want to establish them, we have to give them extra water during the summer, the first couple years, to get them established. And those roots will find the water.
Oh, okay, so that's why you have that, because you will ultimately use the irrigation system that way.
Just to get them established. We'll use it this whole summer, and then we'll see how they're doing, and maybe use it next summer, maybe not. Depends on.
You know, we can always, you know how Pacific is, we might have an August where we don't see the sun, so
Yeah,
we're getting watered in August.
exactly.
But
Right.
it might be a sunny August, so we just never know. We love this weather.
Yeah. Yes, it's unpredictable. Well, well, I have questions for our experts from some fans, and it's from people that want to do container gardening, and because, of course, you know, they live in apartments, but they still want to have flowers. Now, can we put natives in the containers?
Yes.
And what would you suggest? I do like monkey flowers. Those are my favorites: monkey flower and the California iris. But any others? Can you recommend?
Well, we'll put it this way: all of them are growing in containers when you buy them, and so if you get a large enough container to handle its root ball, then it can survive in there. The key thing is that you still water them,
Yes.
because
Yes.
they're totally dependent on you. You're their mother, father, and everything else. You got to give them that nurturing. Otherwise, if you don't give them water, they'll be dead too.
Yeah.
So, but in the wild, if they're in the ground, and once they're established and you don't water them for a couple years, they're going to grow fine. So, I think growing in the ground's a lot more sustainable. Growing in pots is fun though.
Yeah, yeah. If you can keep it, it's so pretty, and you can really work with the sizes, which. Actually, you're designing architect. Can you tell us exactly like how you can design the color palettes, maybe?
With container gardening. That's what
Right.
we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah. I personally, I would pick a color palette, because containers can look kind of busy as it is. So I would get. Some people may think that's boring, but I would get predominantly the same color or all the same color, so that the plants are the showpieces and not the pots so much. You know, different designers may have a different take on that, but yeah.
That's because see, I would probably do the other, but that's I think that would look more elegant to do it the same color. Yeah.
Depends on what you're going for, you know.
Suggestions like for what? Like how?
Well, it depends on if you're doing a patio or what you're doing with the
Patio, like a
exposure.
little patio area.
A little patio area. Okay, and I'll assume full sun.
Right.
Good sun most of
Good
the day.
sun most of the day. You know our weather here.
Yes, I would start off with, and I like big pots. When I was
Right.
working in an office, they called me the pot Zarina. I love doing pots. So I would do big pots, and I would have a lemon, for sure, Meyer lemon. They do fabulous in
choice.
pots, and you can just have, I would do an herb garden, personally, because they're pretty, and I love to cook, and I just want fresh herbs, and I just go out there. A lemon, a lime, if you want a lime. Limes will do okay here. I would definitely have rosemary. Rosemary is almost like a weed. I was going to say you can't kill it. I suppose you could, but
Mint's a good
you'd
one
have to try.
for a container.
Oh, mint is
'Cause it
awesome.
goes crazy in the
Mint is
garden.
awesome. And what I've been doing lately, I do have one little patch. I let the mint go wild in my garden, and I just chop it all down every once in a while, and I make green mint tea. Put a little honey in it. Everybody loves it.
Yes, I
sometimes
do like.
Yeah.
I love. Well, you hit the nail on the. I love herbs. I use a lot of herbs. So, and yes, I've used mint, and that grows just crazy, crazy. Anything you'd like to add, Dave?
When you have container gardens, you want to make sure that you get some proper soil for the plants to grow in.
Yeah.
You don't want to get something right from your garden because it just won't be porous enough. It'll hold on too much moisture. So I'd say the easiest way to do it is to get some good organic potting soil and maybe add a little bit more compost to it. And what I like to do on my potted plants is put a little mulch on top. It's three of my most important things I always talk about is mulch, mulch, and mulch.
Yes,
It's
yes.
important to cover the root balls.
Even on containers.
Yeah,
Oh, that's a new one for me.
I like
Yeah.
putting it on containers because it's going to help hold in that moisture just a little bit more because you know that container is going to dry
yeah.
out.
Yes,
especially
true.
if it's in full sun.
Yes,
Yeah.
and sometimes we
And
don't have chance
There's another little trick too that I'll do sometimes in containers. If it's a plant that likes more moisture, I like to put in these little water crystals. And they look like they're the same things that made baby diapers. And they hold moisture. They're like little water reservoirs, and you mix that into the soil. Don't put too much in because what happens is the pot or the soil will actually start growing because these water crystals will fill up with moisture. And they're little water reservoirs to help plants get established in pots.
And how do you get the water crystals?
You can buy them at any hardware store.
Oh, okay.
Soil moisture, I think they're called, or something like that.
Soil moisture.
But those help. But if they're California natives, they really don't need that.
Yeah, no.
You know, they want to dry out. They want their roots to have some air.
And I think one thing that's really important with container gardening, I think why it fails a lot of time for people is because the plants don't get water.
Right.
When they're in the ground, you can let them be neglected for a lot longer. In a pot, you have a couple of hot days, they fry.
Yeah.
So it's really important that they get water. And Dave is an irrigation expert. He's my go-to person for irrigation. So when you're going to irrigate pots, you irrigate. Like when natives, you want to give them deep watering, not every day. You want them to dry out a little bit. Like with pots. Do you water every day, every other day? How do you water pots?
You know, it depends. If it's in a really hot, sunny spot and when you're first getting the plants established, yeah, you can might want to have to water every day. But what I usually do is I watch the plant. And when it starts to droop a little bit, that's when you know it's going to need some moisture. More plants die from overwatering than from underwatering. So if you
pots or?
in any pot, any plants, any plants, you know, people tend to overwater too much.
True.
Yeah, you can tell if the plant needs some moisture because it's getting crispy.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's getting a little too late. Yeah.
So,
But
well, that's wonderful. Yeah, no, so less water or just mulch. I think mulch,
yeah,
right?
and you know, there's one other little trick that you can get away with growing a pot or a plant in a pot is if you grow it on top of the soil. Sometimes that taproot will grow down into the soil, and now you're going to get some moisture from the ground.
Oh,
So
yeah.
don't always have it on a deck or on a patio, but put it on top of the soil.
Oh, that's a good idea. So, Ginny, are there any events happening? Do you guys need volunteers?
Yes. Yes.
Plug
So,
it, plug away.
first of all, having heard this discussion, you know that the Beautification Advisory Committee has some real experts on it to help community groups and organizations who might be interested in taking on another beautification project. And we have 22 of them throughout the city. So we have small ones, large ones, and we're looking for community groups to volunteer to take on some of the projects. And the Department of Public Works is ready to provide some assistance in terms of planting and that sort of thing, as are members of the advisory committee. So if anyone is interested, it would be helpful for them to call the Public Works Department, and I think their number is 738-3760. Ask for Aaron Clark and let him know that they're interested in a beautification project. And we will get back in touch with the organization and help them get it all started and implemented.
Because you finished almost finished Grace
Yes.
McCarthy, but now what is your next project there, or?
Well, we'll work with each community group that's interested, or group of scout troop or whoever is interested, based on how many volunteers they have and the kind of project they'd like to do. So we have some in mind that'll be very, very special, but we're going to work with each group to
Yeah.
do the
Margarita,
project they want.
two of the places that we've been pointing out that we see a lot that really need some help. We like to find places in the city that are seen a lot, like Ginny says, is the community center.
Yes.
Would be a great place to clean up and to landscape. And Wendy's already designed a landscape for it. And then also Lindemar in front of the shopping centers.
Yeah,
It's
the
been an
median
eyesore for
strips.
years.
Yeah.
And it would be great if someone can help adopt it and get things going.
You bet. You
And
bet.
they get a sign recognition if
Thank
you
you.
adopt a
Oh, yeah.
site. Yeah.
Great plug. Go ahead and plug it away.
Well, and they adopt it for 2 years.
Yeah,
Oh,
2-year
okay.
So
commitment.
2 years to get the gardens established, and with the sustainable gardens that we're designing, they're going to be minimal amount of maintenance. I'm assuming if they
Right.
put it together correctly.
Exactly.
So, and the whole part of this is that, a genuine effort on everybody's part to keep Pacifica beautiful as we all know that it is. And so
Exactly.
we're excited about the
Yes.
projects.
Well, I'm excited too to see it. I can't wait to go back up there and check out
Yeah.
those beautiful flowers. So now there's still room to adopt a highway. Community groups out there. Contact. What was that number again, Ginny?
738-3760.
And contact Aaron.
Aaron Clark.
Aaron Clark. Well, I want to thank the experts here, Wendy Santiago and Dave Martinez, for coming
very
and
welcome.
enriching us more on some more knowledge on how to keep those natives going. And thank you, Ginny, for visiting us.
Thank you for inviting us.
You're welcome. And hey, everyone, above all, happy gardening.